What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 12th episode of Rated Excellent. My name's Exy, and this is my little corner of the internet where I can talk about, just really whatever the fuck I want. And today, we're going to talk about annoying-ass people in grocery stores. Let me tell you, I'm just kidding. We're not doing that again. There is certainly more to talk about with annoying people in grocery stores, but I can't do 2 episodes like that back to back. I'm not going to do that. But before we get into what we're actually going to talk about, let's head into this nice little intro that we've kind of started to develop and jump right into what I've been watching. So, it's just kind of been more of the same. Still kind of making our way through Hell's Kitchen, couple episodes throughout the week. And when I'm not watching that, I'm bouncing over to X-Files. Just made it to the end of season 4. And we actually stopped at the season finale. I won't say what happened, but if the series was going to end there, that would have been equally a fucked up way and a really good way to end the series. Of course, from the future, we know that there's, I think, 5 more seasons and 2 movies. So, you knew it didn't end there. But it was still a pretty cool cliffhanger, especially if you could put yourself back in not knowing that the series continued after that. So, that was a pretty good way to end it, if it was going to end. That's pretty much it, actually, as far as what I've been watching. I kind of checked out a couple of the videos that have been posted from the most recent AGDQ. And honestly, I understand that they're trying to add more of a variety to the schedule. But honestly, I didn't know probably 90% of the games that were on the schedule this year. In fact, I don't think I am probably going to watch anything else from the AGDQ playlist from a few weeks ago. Because none of those games really interest me, and I don't know enough about them to even be, entertained by a speed run, if that makes sense. So I've just kind of, gone back to my, I don't know what the word to use there, but it's, I guess, my generic roster of YouTube videos. As a YouTuber, I think his handle is Clement J. I usually just put on, he's got a massive Mega Man X playlist where he goes through 1 through 8, and he plays Maverick Hunter X and the 2 Game Boy games. I usually just put that on for background noise while I'm doing other stuff or to go to sleep too. That's pretty much all I've been watching. As far as gaming goes, obviously been streaming South Park Stick of Truth. That's going quite well. I think there's probably just one more stream to go before I'll finish that out. Because there's not much left. Just finished Canada. VODs for that are starting to post. Those are going up on Wednesdays. So the first one posted this past Wednesday. Next one will be coming in a day or so. And like I said, I'll probably finish it on the next stream. So that means it's time to start thinking about what the next stream game will be. It should probably be Pokemon Fire Red. But I think I mentioned this in the previous episode, or possibly the first one where Fire Red just kind of didn't exist anymore, is that I was doing that through emulation. For the record, I have mostly no issues with emulation. Especially when it comes to things like content creation. I believe if you own the game, legitimately own the game, but you have no way to turn that into content. Like, I don't have a DS capture card or a 3DS capture card. So, and the Game Boy Advance, I mean, there were no capture cards back then. So the only way that I have means of recording that is through emulation. Now, I also think that if there's just no other way to access these games, period, then I got no problem with emulation. But I think if you have all that other stuff, like if you have a Switch, a dockable Switch, I just got a Switch Lite. But if you have a dockable Switch and a PC and a capture card, and you want to record, I don't know, Super Metroid off of the SNES expansion pack thing. I don't know what Nintendo calls their online stuff. I don't really keep up with Nintendo that much anymore. But if you have all that stuff and that's what you want to record, then I think that you should use the version that you're paying for. But that's probably a topic for maybe another podcast, because emulation can be a pretty deep discussion. But back to what I was getting at with that is that because I am recording it through emulation and my PC's on its last leg, I don't know if I want to trust that, because I think that might be what corrupted both the in-game save and caused the save state to get lost. Because upon further looking into things, I've noticed some other files have gone missing, and it looks like my PC has like crashed a few times without me knowing it, and it has, I guess, used system restore to go back to a previous state where it worked, and that was before said save states were implemented. So I don't know if I want to continue to trust that. At this point, everything that I record is being recorded onto external hard drives, so I still have a copy of it if something happens before I can get it edited and uploaded. Yeah, the need to upgrade the PC is starting to become a high priority. I've got a plan in place that as long as nothing catastrophic happens between now and then, I only need it to last about 45 more days. Give or take a week or so. 60 at the most is what I'm planning for. If something should happen before then, at least as far as this podcast goes, I got an old laptop that it's not really good for much of anything other than, well, not really much of anything, really. It can type. It's old. It's old. But if push came to shove, I could record the podcast and somewhat edit it on there. It's not strong enough to run Adobe Audition, so I'd probably have to use some other type of like online editing software that I don't really want to do, because you don't have the same control in like a free software, because they just don't have all the features. But if push came to shove, that is my backup plan for the podcast. As far as streams go, I don't know. I guess I could try streaming directly off of my Xbox, but I've honestly never done that, so I would have to like look up how to even set that up. But yeah, anyway, aside from South Park Stick of Truth, and like I said, gotta figure out what the next stream game is going to be, I've kind of been dabbling back into Halo Master Chief Collection multiplayer. Honestly, the only thing I play is SWAT. I don't really like Halo 5 Guardians version of SWAT, and I don't really like Halo Infinite's multiplayer, period. Actually, I don't even know if Guardians still has a SWAT mode, because I haven't played that in, probably 7 years, maybe? I kind of stopped playing Guardians online maybe 6 months after it originally came out, so whenever it came out, fast forward 6 months, and that's probably the last time I played it, minus 1 or 2 times hopping on just because I was bored. But yeah, Master Chief Collection, I just really like SWAT. I don't really do Capture the Flag. I don't do King of the Hill, Oddball. I'll do them on random occasions, but I prefer SWAT. I don't know why. Except for SWAT Magnums on Halo 1. Because I swear the hitbox for the head is just completely fucked up, and they still won't fix it. Because I know I'll have headshots with the fucking Magnum on Halo 1. And then I'll shoot the wall, and then I'll fall down dead. It's just fucked up. But like Halo 3, Halo Reach, all those, fucking love SWAT. That's pretty much all I've been playing this week. And I kind of want to try something out. A little segment, kind of like Fuck, Marry, Kill, or really more like what Remember the Game does, where they have play one, remake one, erase one. Except mine's not just going to be just game related. It could be movies or anything really. So I'm tentatively going to be calling mine Remain, Remake, Remove. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Remain, you choose something to go in this category, and everything about it remains exactly how you know it. If you choose Remake, then you can remake it in any way, shape, form, fashion, any system, any format, upgrade, downgrade, remake, demake. And I say that because I recently saw a Mega Man X, like SNES demake, and it looks like it plays better than the actual Mega Man X8. So this would be like a complete remake from the ground up, not necessarily in the fashion of like Resident Evil 2 remake, but it could go either way. Either way, it would make it better than what we have currently. And then obviously remove is quite simply, you remove it and every part of it from existence. Now this means that, like, say if we're talking Super Mario Brothers, if you remove Super Mario Brothers, that means every game that came after that in the series, Mario 3, Mario World, 64, Sunshine, etc., they don't exist. Because you've completely removed Mario from existence. Now, an argument could be made that just because Super Mario Bros. 1 never existed, that doesn't mean that eventually Mario 64 wouldn't have been invented. But there's no guarantees. So, for this first iteration of Remain, Remake, Remove, I'm using a website called Generator Mix, and it's just going to generate me 3 random games. So, and just for the sake of even more randomness, I'm going to click Generate 3 times. So I will not know what these games are until they pop up. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so we got Skyrim, Dishonored, and Contra. Oh, that's kind of tough, because honestly, I've never played... Well, I might have played Contra. But I don't think I've ever played Dishonored and never played Skyrim. But, just from what I know, I think I'm going to remove Dishonored, just because I know absolutely nothing about it, and just based off the cover art, doesn't look all that interesting. I think I'll let Skyrim remain, because, I mean, without Skyrim, I don't think Bethesda would still exist, honestly, which means there would be no Fallout, no Starfield, and even though Starfield's getting kind of a little bit of a cold shoulder now, I'm still interested in Starfield. At some point, I'm actually going to play it. And the little bit I know about Contra being super hard, run and gun shooter, I think this is what I would give the remake treatment to, and I mean full on like Halo Anniversary massive graphic upgrade, move it from side scroll to first person, and just fucking go all out and keep it just as hard, because I like a first person shooter with a good single player campaign. And even though this is considered co-op, it would still be like not multiplayer matches like Call of Duty or SWAT matches. I could do co-op campaign. So yeah, that was kind of interesting and a little challenging, because like I said, these are games that I pretty much have no experience with. So we'll try another round of remain, remake, remove. Gotta get used to saying that. In next week's podcast, and maybe we'll throw some movies in there just to change it up a little bit. And, you know, like everything else that we're developing in this little intro segment, it should get a little more refined the more I do it. Because, you know, practice makes perfect. All right. So, that brings us to the end of the intro. And now we're going into the actual episode discussion, which is, I don't know what we're going to talk about. Not that I don't know what we're going to talk about. That's the topic, is that I don't know what we're going to talk about. And what I mean by that is I come and I sit here and I have so many ideas of topics that I want to talk about that it's almost impossible sometimes for you to narrow it down and pick just one. So with this episode, I figured, why not talk about how I don't know what to talk about? I mean, I've got topics that I really want to talk about, but I don't know if this is the right time in the podcast life cycle to go ahead and burn that topic, so to speak. And then there's other topics that I want to talk about, like, I mean, just stupid shit, like favorite comfort foods or junk foods, things like that. But that's stuff that I would want, like, y'all's interaction with. Go on Patreon or Reddit or something and post, like, this is what I'm going to be talking about. What are your, I don't know, favorite things to get from Taco Bell? Just for example, that's not actually one of them. I mean, I guess it could be, because, I mean, pretty much everything at Taco Bell is good. Alright, now I'm thinking about Taco Bell. But that would be just an example of, you know, here's what I'm going to talk about. I want to get y'all's interaction, and then it's almost like we would be having a discussion, and I'd read y'all's stuff on the air too. But then there's also other topics where it's just like, I know I want to talk about all these things eventually, I just can't pick which one to go with first. And then the other thing is that some of these topics would be such a large discussion that they might actually would warrant 2 episodes or just a very long episode. And I still don't know how I feel about episodes lasting more than about 30 to 45 minutes. Like, there are things that I could probably talk for hour and a half, 2 hours easy. But I don't know if I want to do that as one long continuous episode or split it up. And then if I split it up, is it release part 1 this week, release part 2 next week? Or do I keep part 2 kind of in the can and wait a little while so that specific topic doesn't necessarily get stale? Because that's another issue I'm coming with, is, like, I already finished Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I want to do a review of it on the podcast. But just a couple of episodes ago, I talked about what I think is going to happen with the future of Resident Evil, and I don't want to post 2 Resident Evil podcasts too close together, because I feel like that would kind of give the wrong impression that, oh, this is a Resident Evil podcast, but it's not really a Resident Evil podcast. I could probably talk about Resident Evil in pretty much every episode, because it's probably one of my... Well, I mean, it's not probably. It definitely is one of my favorite franchises of all time. Everything. Games, books, movies, all of it. And I probably could just do a Resident Evil podcast. But I don't necessarily want to do that right now. Which also leads into the topic of, you know, I kind of already got this podcast bug. We made it past the mythical episode 10. Even if you don't count the mini episode, we've now got 10 full episodes up. And now I've kind of got the bug where, like, I'm kind of processing the thoughts of, do I want to do more podcasts? Like, more narrow and specific topics. I would have a pathway to talk about things no matter what. And that's kind of the other issue that I have, is that because this is such a generic, widespread, open-ended podcast, and I don't have a specific path that I follow, like, and what I mean by that is, like, there are Resident Evil specific podcasts, there are true crime podcasts, there are podcasts that only talk about this one specific show, or lore in the Marvel universe. But I'm more generic right now. But I kind of wonder if I would even want to do something so one lane. Because that was actually a big part of why I wanted to keep this generic, is because before, in a previous time, all of the content that I made was very driven towards one specific place. And that kind of gave me like a burnt out feeling. And there wasn't a lot of motivation. Like, at first, it was like, go, 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 yeah, 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 yeah. And then when I realized that, hey, I kind of don't want to do this today. I'm feeling a little bored with this. And then the next time, it was kind of that same, like, yeah, I'm still bored. I just kind of want to do something else. And then that just kept snowballing until the first hiatus away from YouTube happened. And then I came back all motivated to kind of do it a little bit different. But I didn't change quite vastly enough. And then that led to another hiatus. And pretty much every hiatus that I've taken from content creation has been a result of lack of motivation. And that's what I feel like would happen if I contain myself to just one topic. Like, we're just a Nintendo podcast. We're only going to talk about Nintendo stuff. Xbox had this really cool announcement, but we're going to completely ignore that because it has nothing to do with Nintendo. I feel like that kind of traps me in a box. And while I think I do need to give myself a little more containment so that I can narrow things down better and actually have a topic ready to go, instead of staring at my screen for 20-30 minutes before I hit record. And, you know, I just come in, this is what I'm going to talk about for sure, let's hit record, let's get it done. I think that would help. But I don't want to be so tightly wound that if something piques my interest 5 minutes before I hit record, that I can't change lanes and just talk about that. So that's something that I've got to work on, and I guess this episode was kind of just a, I don't know, like a little therapy roadmap or something. As far as the grand scheme of things go with the podcast, other than the introduction of Remain, Remake, Remove, this episode of the podcast is probably not all that important to the timeline as a whole. As far as what we're going to be doing moving forward, this is probably a pretty important episode in realizing some things. And, you know, sometimes, actually right now, a lot of this conversation has just been me just kind of like word vomiting ideas out and just seeing how they sound, you know, now that they're out in the world. And that kind of helps me process them a little better. But yeah, next week's episode probably should be a little more dialed in. I might even just go ahead and say fuck it and do the Resident Evil 2 remake review. But we'll see then. As for now, we're going to end it here. As always, if you're listening to this on YouTube, maybe consider following on whatever your favorite podcast app is. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, all those. I mean, I think my RSS feed goes to like 15 different aggregators at this point. So if you have it, I'm probably on there. But the reason why you would want to listen to it on one of them is because every episode that you hear on YouTube is posted a week later. So by the time you're seeing this on YouTube for the first time, there's probably a whole nother episode waiting for you on your phone. Or if you still listen to podcasts on your computer. I don't really know anybody that does that anymore, but that used to be a thing. Long time ago. Back before podcasts were even called podcasts. That's definitely something to talk about. Fuck! But we wouldn't be able to do that if this was a one-lane podcast. So, we'll eventually get to that. But also, if you're on YouTube, give us a like. Hit that subscribe. That way you'll get notified of streams and any other content that happens to pop on YouTube from time to time. And if you're listening to this on one of those podcast aggregators, give us a rating and a review. Apparently those help. I mean, I understand why they help. Never really asked for them before. I don't know why I'm randomly doing it now, but they do help. And it's crazy because I know this is cliche and pretty much every other podcaster says this, but I kind of didn't really ever expect anybody to find this or listen to it. And looking at the stats and all that, I'm actually quite shocked at how much this has grown in a short amount of time. It's not a lot of stuff, but I mean, I expected to get maybe 5 downloads a week, and maybe it's a little more than that now, and that's pretty fucking cool. So if you leave reviews and ratings, that'll help spread it around. Also, check the show notes, description. There's some affiliate links down there. If you use those to try the products, it helps me out a lot. And let's see, who do we want to share it with this week? Alright, if you like this podcast, share it with Ashley. They would really like to hear this. Alright, let's stop.